Hey there, macro folks. This is Mr. Hooker, and today we're going to look at Chapter 14, one of everybody's favorite macro chapters, all about money, the Federal Reserve, and interest rates. Everybody likes talking about money, especially if they can get their hands on a little bit more. So let's get on into the action here. What are the functions of money? Money is a medium of exchange where it is used to buy and sell goods. If you can take something into a store, exchange it for 3 or 4 items, walk out of the store, and they don't call the cops on you, you have used something as a medium of exchange. There is money being used as a unit of account where goods are valued in some sort of thing. We use dollars here in the US. Um, that is basically things on a price tag, right? The value they put on a price tag. If you are of a certain age, you know the value of a dollar. You can look at a price tag and let's say it says $20. You can look at the good, look at the price tag, and say, "Ooh, that good is worth more than $20. I think I'll take two." Or you can say, "Well, nope, that is not worth $20. I will leave it right here on the rack or on the shelf." Or you can say, well, that's worth about $20. Maybe I'll have one. Or maybe, I just don't feel like it at this moment. So that is basically money being used as unit of account. That's just, you knowing the value of a dollar, looking at the price tag and saying, yeah, that's about right. Or that's about wrong. Or, they have severely undervalued that good. I will take as many of those as I can get. Store of value, you can hold some wealth in money form. This means that you don't have to spend all of your money at one time because you know that your money will still be valuable in the future. You can put some in savings and spend it later. So, the very first economics textbook I ever worked on many, many years ago the money chapter was titled Why Bunnies Make Bad Money. Um, and if you look at these medium of exchange, like, you'd basically have to carry around one bunny for parts. Unit of account, like how do you value small items like a third of a bunny 8 foot, whatever. And store value, you don't really know how long bunnies are going to live. So you couldn't hold on to bunnies very long. As soon as you got them, you'd have to get rid of them. So bunnies make really bad money. Money also has the advantage of liquidity. So those three first things, those are the necessary functions of money, and then you have the functions of good money, which are liquidity, divisibility, and portability. So good money is also liquid, divisible, and portable. Liquid means that you can exchange it without loss of value. So nowadays, you have fees for different things, for credit cards and other things. And then also, if you're keeping your money in art, if you really need to get your money out of it, you may not get it right away. You may lose some value in that. But if you can get all of your money out of something right away, all the value out of something right away, it is liquid. It is divisible if you can divide it into parts or actually stack it. So for the dollar, we have quarters, nickels, dimes, and pennies. You also have $5 bills, $10 bills, $20 bills, $50 bills, $100 bills. So we can put more money on that. And that makes that easy. And it's portable. Rocks are not very portable. Cowrie shells, you'll find out, or you'll learn about those as well in class. They were extremely portable back in the day, and therefore they were used as money for several hundred years. They were also very divisible, very portable, very liquid for a while. And so the idea that our money is easily transportable, easily portable, is one of the reasons it has staying power as well. All right, so the definition of M1, there are basically M1, M2, and M3. We don't cover M3 in here, but I will tell you a little bit about it just because it's good to know. M1 is basically your currency, your checkable deposits, and any other liquid deposits, basically traveler's checks. So currency not held by banks, um, not held in a bank, and then checkable deposits, which is basically your DDA accounts, your direct deposit, direct demand deposit accounts, demand deposit accounts, your checking accounts, and then other liquid deposits, which are basically traveler's checks. The the institutions that offer checkable deposits are your commercial banks and your thrift institutions. Your thrift institutions, some people may know these, may not. Your most popular one is a credit union. Others are mutual savings banks and savings and loan associations. Your currency is coin and paper money. Um, these we call them Federal Reserve notes. So if you take out a bill, a dollar bill or $5 bill, whatever, at the very top of it, you will see it says Federal Reserve note. That is what it is. So it is nothing more than token money or fiat money, which means the only thing that backs it is your faith in the U.S. government that it will not print too much money, and that if it is a $5 bill, that it is worth $5 today, and it will be worth $5 next week, and it will be worth $5 next month. That is your faith in the U.S. government. If the government prints too much money, then maybe it's not worth $5. So that is kind of the problem. That's the thing. It's just your faith. It is not backed by any commodity whatsoever. And so that's this whole thing. The value of any piece of currency is unrelated to its intrinsic value. M2 is M1 plus any what we call near money. These are small denominated time deposits. When we say time deposit, think certificate of deposit. So those are basically timed savings accounts. You can do them for a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever you want to do. The longer you do it, the more interest you make on them. But if you take your money out before the time period, they basically charge you a fee plus a loss interest thing. So it's not worth it to do it for too long, unless you don't need that money for that period of time. So small denominated, if you want to know what small denominated is anything under $100,000. And then what we call money market mutual fund. So money market accounts are what they call now accounts. These things have minimum balances anywhere between $2,500 to $3,000, 3 to 5 withdrawals a month. And then basically in a money market mutual fund, you're going to have this idea that your money is going to be put into a mutual fund instead of a savings account. And that is how so instead of savings, it's going to be put into a mutual fund. It's going to earn market interest. So when you see bank commercials and then at the end, this guy talks really fast and says not all accounts FDIC insured, this is the account they're talking about. Other near money is savings accounts and what they call MMDA accounts, which are the now accounts, which aren't as savings accounts. So it's a demand account. So $2,500 to $3,000, 3 withdrawals a month. It just pays a higher rate of interest than a savings account. It's just like a savings account that you can write checks on. And as far as the government is concerned, it is a savings account. So it comes under what we call near money. So M3, and this is components of M1 and M2. So M3 is just large denominated time deposits, certificates of deposit over $100,000, and repurchase agreements. And we'll talk about repurchase agreements later. I do believe that comes in chapter 15, but it's just time deposits over $100,000 in repurchase agreements. That's all, plus M2. So M2, which includes M1, plus large time deposits and repurchase. So retail, so components here. Uh, so retail money market funds, which is 1 trillion. Small denominated time deposits, which is 0.1 trillion. Other liquid deposits, which is 13.5 trillion. And then checkable deposits, which is in commercial banks, checkable deposits in commercial banks, 4.7 trillion, and currency, which is only 2.1 trillion. So note, currency is like the smallest thing out there. We don't really have real money floating around anymore. It's really mostly just paper floating around. So M1 is about 20.3 trillion, M2 is about 21.4 trillion. So that's where we are right now. So nowadays, money is backed by the government's ability to keep the value stable. Money is just debt. I have a video on that here in a minute, but you'll see it. Why is the money valuable? Because it's acceptable. You walk into a store, you pick out, 3 or 4 goods, you hand them some money, you walk out, they don't call the cops. It is considered legal tender, although there are, places do not have to accept cash, or they don't have to accept card. They can accept card only, or they can accept cash only. Um, I used to teach in a place where, and up until Knoxville, I used to teach in very rural areas. And so I taught in a very rural area. There was a store out in a spot that it was probably 15, 20 minutes response time for the sheriff's department, and they got robbed probably 3 times a week. So they quit taking cash. And so that was their way to kind of cut down on the robberies. They would no longer accept cash. It was a card only kind of business. And now out at Smoke, I'm a big baseball fan. I go out to the Smokies kind of often. Um, they are cashless only, and baseball major league stadiums are cashless venues. So just understand that nowhere has to take cash. They can be cashless stadiums or cashless venues. And so, relative scarcity keeps the value up. And we've looked at that with demand and supply. So that's how that goes. So money and prices. Prices affect the purchasing power of money. Hyperinflation renders money unacceptable. So, Zimbabwe, all those kind of Zimbabwe, Germany after World War II, Japan, after World War One, Japan after World War II. So you have to stabilize money's purchasing power. The intelligent management of the money supply is just monetary policy, and we'll talk about that more in chapter 15. And you also have to have an appropriate fiscal policy where the government isn't telling the Fed to just spend too much money. So this is one that'll talk about money as debt. This is called That Film About Money, and they will talk. This one will show you the idea of money as debt. There's actually two. There's a part one and a part two. Part one tells you pretty much everything, but if you want to learn more about it, there is That Film About Money part two. If you'd like to see it. So this will be in the class. Actually, both of them will be in the class, but there you go. All right. Federal Reserve and the banking system. So the Federal Reserve System really started in 1913. So there was some problems. We tried to form a national bank twice. It did not work. Just the population did not take to a national bank just because of who we are as a country. And so, honestly, the way this went, and this is insane, not far from here, down in South Georgia, at Jekyll Island, if any of you have ever been there, it's a really cool vacation spot. A bunch of bankers, not government people, private bankers, went to Jekyll Island and came up with the idea of the Federal Reserve System and how it should look. And they sent that to Congress, and that's what passed. Small modification. The senator from Missouri did not like it, and he apparently had enough sway in the banking committee that he got 2 Federal Reserve districts in the small state of Missouri, one on the east side in St. Louis, one on the west side in Kansas City, and it jacked up the way the districts look. But other than that, that's the way that goes. So there are 12 districts. Remember, this started in 1913. So when you look at them, you'll notice they're very much kind of skewed to the East Coast. That's because that's where the population was in 1913, and they're not going to redo them. So that's just it. They redo the districts will change the number of branches they have, but they're not going to rechange. They're not going to change the districts. They have a board of governors, which is seven members that are appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate. They serve a 14-year term, 14-year term. And then once you're done with your 14 years, you must leave. Now, you can serve a portion of someone else's term and your 14-year term, but you can't do anything past your 14-year term. This is how Alan Greenspan was on the Board of Governors for about 27 years. Then there are 12 Federal Reserve banks. They are the central bank for their regions. They're quasi-public. Each one has its own private board. I used to know a guy that served on the board for the Richmond Bank. He was just a cotton farmer in South Carolina, but it was kind of interesting. But they are the banker's bank. So if you are in trouble, your last call is to go to the Fed and say, hey, I need to borrow money, because nobody likes to borrow money from their boss. Let's be honest about how that goes. And the Fed does oversee banks. So they hold reserve balances. So here's how it looks. You got the Board of Governors, who also has the Federal Open Market Committee, which we'll talk about. It doesn't do as much as it used to, or the FOMC. And then the 12 reserve banks, who oversee the commercial banks and the thrift institutions, who serve the public. So here are your 12 districts. As I said, it was skewed to the east. It basically just start at the top of the East Coast, go down, go over, go back up, go down, go over, go back up, go down, and then move out to San Francisco. So you got Boston, New York, Philadelphia. Then you have to kind of go over to Cleveland, because that covers the western Pennsylvania. And then Richmond, Atlanta, go up and over. Chicago, St. Louis, go up and over. Minnesota, KC, Dallas, and then go out to San Francisco. And that's it. So we are covered by District 6 here in East Tennessee, Atlanta. Western Tennessee is covered by District 8, St. Louis. So there you go. Tennessee is kind of split in that way. So this video, FedHead, will talk a little bit about how the Fed does some of its policies. Actually, you hope it doesn't happen the way it happens in this video, but it does talk about the importance of the chairman of the Fed. Federal Open Market Committee is made up of the 7 members of the Board of Governors, and then all of the 12 district presidents go to the meetings, but only 5 vote at a time. So one is always the New York Fed chair, because the open market desk is in New York, and then 4 rotate. So that's kind of how that goes. And then they aid the Board of Governors in setting the monetary policy. They conduct the open market operations, which are nowhere near as important nowadays as they used to be. So that's just kind of how that goes. They used to be very important. They used to be the number one tool. Nowadays, it's kind of fallen off. It's not as big a deal. Commercial banks and thrifts, there's about 4,300 commercial banks and about 7,000 or so thrifts. So there's way more, and even if you look around here in Knoxville, there's way more credit unions than there are banks. So the world's 12 largest commercial banks in 2021, we had ICBC in China, China Construction Bank, Ag Bank of China, Bank of China, Mitsubishi Bank in Japan, HSBC in the UK, BNP Paribas in France, and then JP Morgan Chase is the first American bank in there, and then Bank of America, Sumitomo Mitsui in Japan, and then Citigroup and Wells Fargo wrapping that up. So it's way down the list before you get to an American bank. Here's the 2023 list, and we'll do this, and then we'll call this a day. these are the 100 largest banks, but we're going to just look at the, oh, where's my list? There we go. There we go. There's the list. Took it a second to load. Industrial and Commercial Bank, China, ICBC, China Construction Bank, Ag Bank of China, Bank of China, JP Morgan Chase is now number 5. Bank of America is number 6. Mitsubishi Financial in Japan is number 7. HSBC Holdings is number 8. BNP Paribas is number 9. And then Credit Agricole Group is number 10. And Citigroup is number 11, which is kind of a interesting thing there now. All right. We're going to go with that. And then those are, we're going to say, oops, didn't want that. We'll do this one more. All right. So what are the functions of the Fed? They issue all the currency in the U.S. They hold the reserves for banks. We really don't trust banks to hold their own reserves. You have to hold a percentage of your reserves at the Fed. Then you hold some money as vault cash. And then they set the reserve requirement. But the Fed did end reserve requirements in 2020. So there's no longer reserve requirements. So if you think the banks have to hold a percentage, they really don't. It's kind of the Wild West now, which is a little scary in that sense. They lend money to financial institutions. They collect checks, and then they run those checks. So like if you write a check to a business in West Tennessee, if you write a check to a business in, let's say, well, Florida wouldn't do it. Go north, Kentucky, whatever, then that would go through 2 different feds. In your own district, it's not as big a deal because it doesn't clear between districts, but it becomes a bigger deal if you're in another district. So if you go out west and clear a check and write a check, then that's a thing. But I don't know that many people write checks anymore. Act as the fiscal agent for the U.S. government. They also supervise banks, and they control the money supply. All right, we're going to stop here, and we will pick this up in video 2.